This is I Was 8. I'm Larry Fedoruk. We are well underway with the Season 3 batch of stories about growing up in a small Canadian prairie town. Next week's story comes with condiments. Delicious. But this week, be prepared to be entranced. This is I Was 8.
Season 3, Chapter 2, The Great Lorenzo-Hypnotist.
One summer, Ravine came to our town. Perhaps he was already the Great Ravine then, I can't exactly remember. Ravine was a hypnotist, and more importantly, I had seen Ravine on TV. I had never seen anyone in person that I had seen on TV. I wasn't even sure if that was possible. Once more, Ravine was not just a hypnotist, he was an impossibilist. That's what he called himself, impossibilist. Wow, he made up a word and then he became that thing. That's magical. That's hypnotic. I begged my parents to take me to see Ravine, and as it turns out, they had already purchased tickets, as did about half the town and surrounding area for one of his multiple shows. Ravine played our town's Gem Theater, our movie house that also had bingo occasionally, and every once in a while another live act would come through. I remember going to this country and western band there one time, being largely unimpressed. They butchered all the songs I had come to like on the radio, and it seemed to me that my uncles who picked up a violin drunk at a wedding could make better music than these yokels. But this was Ravine, the man from the TV. The man who carried the secret of hypnotism and could control minds. I counted the sleeps. On Ravine night, I had no problem getting scrubbed up and cleaned up and putting on a good shirt. This was a special occasion. The theater was packed and there was a deafening din of chatter and laughter until the lights went dim. And the stage lights revealed the Great One himself sauntering onto the stage. He seemed a giant of a human being. Then again, I was 8. Everyone seemed tall to me. But this guy was also up on a stage. He had slick black hair, a goatee, and a huge black cape that he whirled around as he spoke. I imagine this is what Satan would look like if he showed up in our town, except Ravine seemed like a nice devil. Unless, of course, he wielded his power for evil. Naturally, he anticipated that exact thought. Ravine told us that he had been blessed with this great ability and that hypnotism and mind control should never be tried at home and must only be attempted under the strictest of guidelines and only by those who had the gift, plus, the extensive training. Ravine asked for volunteers from the audience to come up and fill the 5 chairs on stage. A chant began for Father Leslie to run up. He was the Roman Catholic priest. I was actually kind of surprised to see him there. He declined. I guess he figured since his mind was already being controlled, he didn't need the added burden. To my surprise, my dad volunteered. So did Mr. Scarlett, the grocer, also one of the teachers from the high school, and there was a couple of guys I didn't recognize. They must have been from a neighboring town. Ravine worked his magic and began to put everyone under a trance, telling them that when he counted to 3 and snapped his fingers, they would be under his control. And when he did it again later, they would return to their normal selves. I do remember that Mr. Scarlett just couldn't be hypnotized, which Ravine explained as an unwillingness to reach into one's own consciousness, or something. I think the high school teacher sang a stupid song, and the 2 guys from out of town acted like they were suddenly freezing cold in a sweaty theater in August. Dad got the classic, though. He flapped his arms and cackled like a chicken. He got the biggest round of applause. "Yay, Dad! That chicken is my dad! Yay, Dad!" When Dad returned to his seat, we asked him if he remembered anything that he did on stage, and He said no. He did have a twinkle in his eye when he said that, like he'd put one over on Ravine and the whole town, but, Dad often had a twinkle in his eye. We usually called that rum. And just like that, it was all done. The evening had flown by. The great Ravine disappeared into his cloak, and then his cloak disappeared into the prairie night. And I would never see him again, except, of course, on TV. When he would come on TV, I would shout, "Hey, I saw him in person." Or did I? The Gem Theater is where we went to watch movies. And sitting there that night, looking up at the big stage, it was as if I'd watched a movie. A movie with the giant Ravine, co-starring Dad as the chicken. As I lay in bed that night, I realized my calling. I would be a hypnotist. Larry, the hypnotist. No, wait. Lawrence. Yeah, that's better. No. Lorenzo. I think Lorenzo means Lawrence. Yes, the great Lorenzo, hypnotist. Or should I be Lorenzo, the great hypnotist? The great Lorenzo, the great hypnotist? Too much? How would I decide? It's impossibilist. The next morning, I dug through an old shoebox for the pocket watch and chain my grandfather gave me a long time ago. It had stopped working, but he promised that one day he would have it fixed for me if I just took good care of it. I polished it up and now had the perfect, mesmerizing, shiny item to wave back and forth in front of my unsuspecting friends while telling them that they were getting sleepy. Well, I suddenly realized that I couldn't try this on my friends. I had seen most of them at the Ravine show. Surely they would also be running around with their grandfather's pocket watches. We couldn't all possibly hypnotize each other. Dozens of kids on a ball diamond running around, waving their pocket watches, counting to 3, snapping their fingers. Again, impossibilist. As luck would have it, we were going to my uncle's farm Sunday after church. Many of my little cousins would be there. They would be the prime candidates. After the meal, when all the kids were told to go out and play, I gathered many of the 3- and 4-year-olds around me. Okay, listen, you are all going to be hypnotized. It's not going to hurt, and you only come out of it when I count to 3 and snap my fingers. But I can't count, piped up one of the little ones. Jeez, this is going to be tough. You don't have to count, I said. I do the counting. You just look at this watch while I swing it and you're going to get very sleepy. Mom says I'm too old for naps, said another kid. Why do you have Grandpa's watch? Asked a third. Oh, just shut up, all of you. Watch the watch. Man, oh man, did Ravine ever go through all this? I didn't know what to do, so I soldiered on. You're getting very sleepy. Let your mind go. Sleep, sleep, sleep. Suddenly, one of my cousins inexplicably began crying and ran into the house. A second, also inexplicably, wet herself and left. The other 3 wouldn't stop talking amongst themselves. Hopeless. I put the watch in my pocket and climbed onto my uncle's tractor and pretended to drive it. Maybe a pretend drive around the countryside for half an hour would help clear my head. It didn't occur to me till the next day that the prime candidate to practice on was standing right there in my bedroom. It was me. I could hypnotize myself. All that stuff Ravine said about don't try this at home, well, screw that. That's exactly where I'm going to try it. But if I was hypnotized, how would I count to 3 and snap myself out of it? Here's the thing. I would tell myself that when I was my hypnotized self and wanted to be my usual self, that the hypnotized self would count to 3 and snap his hypnotized fingers and become normal. I'm not even sure I followed that, but okay. I peered deep into the mirror while swinging the watch back and forth, back and forth. You're getting sleepy, I said. Sure enough, after about 5 minutes of this, I did feel somewhat tired. It was working. I kept going. After a few more minutes, I uttered the magic words. You're now under my spell. I snapped my fingers. You know something? I think I was under my own spell. I told myself to sing a silly song. I couldn't think of one, so I sang Happy Birthday. Then the topper. I told myself to flap my arms and cluck like a chicken. And you know what? I did. Wow. I had done it. I wasn't sure what kind of trance I was still in, so I counted to 3, told myself to snap out of it. Excitedly, I ran downstairs and told my parents what I had just accomplished. Self-hypnotism. And the proof was I acted like a chicken, just like Dad. My mother explained that all I had really done was to tell myself to act like a chicken and then acted upon it, obeyed myself, if you will. She could tell herself to moo like a cow, and then she made a mooing sound. That was not hypnotism, she said. Dad said that if he tells himself to stand on one leg and pat himself on the head 3 times, that doesn't mean he's hypnotized. With that, he stood on one leg and patted himself on the head. What are you people? Are you circus performers? Are you both on the run right now? You don't understand. I was hypnotized. I was also the hypnotizer. Well, thanks, Mom and Dad, for trying to rain on my ravine parade. Killjoys, non-believers, I am Lorenzo the Great, hypnotist extraordinaire, and I'll bet Ravine can't even hypnotize himself. I hypnotized myself many times in the following weeks, and it worked out great. It had this added benefit. If Dad would ask me to help rake up the lawn clippings, I would say, "Sorry, Dad, can't. I'm in a trance right now." "Sorry, Mom, trash will have to wait. Trance time. Maybe later." This somehow worked without any follow-up demands from my folks. Maybe they were beginning to believe. To my surprise, none of my friends took up the trade, so I began trying to hypnotize them. Many of them weren't willing to connect with their inner consciousness, but I got a few. My favorite trick was to put them under, then tell them to spell pig backwards, and then say funny. Spell pig backwards and say funny. They mostly did. I'd count to 3, snap my fingers, bring them back to reality as the audience roared. None of them ever felt sleepy, but I did manage to hypnotize my idiot friend Philip and talk Philip into lending me his ball glove. Now, he never shared that thing, so my powers were working. When school started in the fall, I tried hypnotizing more kids at recess, but the teacher caught me and took away my pocket watch. He gave it back to me 3 weeks later in exchange for a promise that I never bring it to school again unless it's a working timepiece, and I never try to hypnotize people on the school grounds or during school time. Alas, the great Lorenzo's career was all too brief. A number of reasons. The spell pig backwards and say funny gag had made its way all over town. Now every hack was doing it in his act. There was the school board's censorship. And as far as self-hypnotism, well, I'd run out of animals to tell myself to act like. Act like a platypus. Okay? I don't know what that is. That was the legendary great Lorenzo career. Oh, I did forget one thing. It's always bothered me. Philip, if you're listening, 1, 2, 3. And I'll send you your ball glove.
I Was 8 is a weekly storytelling podcast written, produced, and voiced by Larry Fedoruk. A new episode every Thursday on all major platforms or Larry's I Was 8 YouTube channel. Tell a friend about his podcast and reach out to Larry Fedoruk, that's Fedoruk, at LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com.